Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a cloud-scale monitoring platform that unifies metrics, logs, and traces from technologies like Istio, AppMesh, and Envoy. Plus, Datadog's Service Map automatically plots out the dependencies in your microservices architectures for seamless, context-rich troubleshooting. With rich visualizations, algorithmic alerting, and more than 250 vendor-supported integrations, Datadog allows you to monitor your distributed applications in real time. Start a free 14-day trial today by visiting datadog.com/cloudcast, and Datadog will send you a great free t-shirt. That's datadog.com/cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. Last week of April, weather's starting to get better, and hopefully everybody's having, good week. And let's dive right into Cloud News of the Week. Kind of another hodgepodge week. We are beginning to see some events start to happen. This week was Red Hat Summit. Also, KubeCon will be next week. So we'll take a look for those news and notes that are coming out of those events. As we dive into Cloud News of the Week, kind of like I said, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's start with Gartner came out with their projections for 2021. They are projecting public cloud growth of 23% in 2021, up to $330 billion in overall spend, and then combined overall IT spending around $4.1 trillion. So, cloud's still less than 10% of overall IT spending, and hence the reason why we're seeing so much talk about multiple clouds, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and all those sorts of things. Again, because still a lot of investment going on in the data center, but then also a lot of investment happening in the public clouds. On the acquisition front, because it wouldn't be a Cloud News of the Week without some sort of acquisition happening, former guest of the show and sponsor of the show, Rapid7, acquired open source cybersecurity monitoring platform Velociraptor. So gets them into endpoint security and a number of different posture management. So another acquisition in the security space. We continue to see that be hot, and lots of acquisitions around security. And then finally, both Lyft and Uber have now officially dropped their plans to create autonomous driving vehicles or autonomous driving technology on their own. I think both the pandemic year and then just some, things going on around the laws and everything around how they operate their businesses, forced them to sort of realize that sort of investment, while it was very long-term and could significantly impact their business, it was just not something that either one of them could sustain. Lyft recently sold off their division to Toyota. So, I think it makes more sense to see that autonomous driving embedded into the vehicles, run by the companies themselves. We may still see people like Google, who has enormous pockets, or Apple or somebody else, deep pockets, deep profitability, investing in this space. We're beginning to see the Lyfts and the Ubers, really kind of diversify more into food delivery and other things like that. So interesting to kind of watch the trends around, some of those leading companies out of Silicon Valley and investments they make and investments they have to eventually write off. So with that, I'm going to wrap up Cloud News of the Week. We have an interesting guest this week, and before I even get to it, I need to apologize, because anybody who knows I am historically bad at pronouncing names, even the most simplest names. And this one, while I had it written down on the card, I did then go ahead and pronounce it extremely bad, and I want to apologize. So on our show this week, right after the break, we're going to talk to Heikki Nousiaine, who is the CTO and founder of Aiven, a company that is delivering open source technology as managed services in the cloud. So it was an exciting conversation, a fun conversation to dig into how they're delivering it, how they think about this marketplace. But I wanted to upfront apologize to Heikki for just terribly mispronouncing his name when we did the interview. So with that, we will get to that interview right after the break. Today's show is sponsored by CBT Nuggets. We know that Cloudcast listeners are curious about technologies, but how are you really learning to master the technologies needed to be a cloud expert? When Aaron and I got started, we had to buy books, set up labs, find experts, and then hope something didn't crash. CBT Nuggets makes it easy to either get hands-on skills or get certified with the latest cloud technologies. Whether it's AWS, Azure, cloud automation, security, or app dev, CBT Nuggets has you covered. What I really liked about CBT Nuggets is the online instructors are both knowledgeable and they keep it interesting. Their courses have built-in test questions, virtual coaching to help plan your certification path, and I can always jump into a virtual lab to get hands-on at any time. Check it out at cbtnuggets.com/cloudcast to sign up for a free learner account. This unlocks tons of great training, and you'll be entered into a drawing for a free 6-month premium subscription. That's cbtnuggets.com/cloudcast.
Today's show is sponsored by Okta, the leading independent identity solution. Okta provides best-in-class authorization so your customers and workforce can safely access what they need most right when they need it from anywhere. Organizations around the world trust Okta's Identity Cloud to sign in, authorize, and manage users, whether it's employees, contractors, partners, or customers. And with Okta's developer tools, you'll never have to build authentication again. Our customizable code blocks are flexible and future-proof, with easy-to-use APIs and SDKs, so you can do less coding and more shipping. Okta is dedicated to building the most reliable, neutral identity platform because it means protecting more than a login. Identity is protecting people, their ideas, their work, their brilliance. It's protecting your future with confidence. Learn more at okta.com. That's OKTA.com.
And we're back. And folks, obviously, if you're listening to the show, you're a fan of the cloud. In many cases, you and what you're doing at your company or what you're doing in terms of your interest is obviously in multiple clouds and multiple technologies. And obviously, the data space around what's able to be offered in the cloud is beginning to expand like crazy. And so, we find that a lot of the companies that we talk to, a lot of the people that we talk to are really trying to figure out the right balance between, when should I be looking for innovation from a vendor versus innovation from open source. You're trying to sort out, as I go to the cloud, which cloud do I pick? And if I make choices, do they lock me in or do they, sort of give me flexibility? And today we're going to talk about, how do we really best harness what's going on in the open source space around innovation and around multi-cloud and so forth, and really some new ways to be able to take advantage of them. So really excited to have Heikki Nousiaine, who is founder and CTO of Aiven, and excited to have you on today. Heikki, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Pleasure to be here.
And I apologize. I guarantee, even though we talked about it beforehand, I probably butchered your name, so my apologies. You are in one of my favorite cities. You're in Finland. You're in Helsinki, which is just a beautiful part of the world. Before we dive into the work that you're doing, which is really interesting to me, and I almost feel bad because we weren't covering you guys a couple of years ago, but give us a little bit of your background. Obviously, you're a technologist. You've worked out a lot of these things. You're now running this very successful business. You guys just took a $100 million round of C round of funding. But give us a little bit of your background before we dive into the company and what you're doing around open source.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So indeed, my name is Heikki Nousiaine. I'm CTO at Aiven. I've been engineer all my career, and kind of before launching Aiven with my co-founders, I was working with a software company. The latest post was indeed driving cloud adoption and DevOps in general to make teams work faster and be more productive, bringing happiness to the development world. I've always been or always used a lot of open source just because of the business flexibility, it being available immediately. You can get started. And that was a kind of quite natural then bridge to our realization that a lot of people are moving into cloud, and a lot of people are wanting to do these faster DevOps cycles, and get to work faster.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the way I would summarize it, and I'd love to kind of, dig into it is, when I look at Aiven, it allows me to, as a developer, as a company, be able to go and say, I would like to consume really the most popular and oftentimes the most powerful, sort of data-centric, streaming-centric open source projects. So things like Kafka and Cassandra, Elasticsearch, some of the MySQL Postgres databases as a service. So I can get sort of the power of the innovation of what's going on in open source, and you deliver those as a service on top of all the major clouds. So whether it's AWS, Azure, Google, DigitalOcean, UpCloud, that's a pretty huge undertaking. I want to kind of dig into it, but What sort of brought you to the ability to deliver all these capabilities? That's it seems like an amazing SRE team to be able to deliver all those services on all the different clouds.
Yes. So we have a bit of history on. So let me just maybe go into a bit of history.
Yeah.
Aiven, we really started with the mission that we wanted to bring these great open source data technologies as services to developers, enable developers to get started in kind of matter of minutes and focus on building applications instead of setting up infrastructure and worrying how that works in, say, quote unquote, unreliable cloud, if you will.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring these technologies readily available. And when we started, it was a four people founding team, and we kind of set out that we want to automate all this. This is the only way that we can scale these operations. So it's indeed our software product is what keeps these services up and running, from provisioning to monitoring to ensuring that any faults are automatically corrected and so forth.
Yeah. So, walk me through the basics. A customer says, I want to engage with Aiven. I like this service, for example. I want to, set up a Kafka service. What's the engagement model? Like, how much do they have to know about the underlying cloud where they're working at? How does your team engage with them? Kind of walk me through what the experience is like from day one and then, day 600 or something.
Yes. So most of our customers are self-service customers.
Yeah.
They probably know the technology. Postgres have been using it, or then are kind of looking at Kafka. It's an interesting technology, but don't have necessarily the skills to set it up and keep running. So we have a self-service portal where these services can be deployed on any of our supported clouds and regions, typically. And to co-locate the services with the other environment that the customer is running or workload our customers are running. And then it's kind of create a service in a couple of minutes, is up and running. You get an endpoint address and some usage credentials that you can then plug into your application and get started immediately.
Yeah. No, I loved just kind of poking around on the website because it really was that simple. It was, here's the service I want, here's the cloud I want, here's the region I want, and a dozen or so different offerings in terms of small, medium, and large, and here's the estimated price. It was sort of everything that you'd want in terms of saying, I want the cloud to be simple. I like these open source technologies. And then I like the fact that you have the flexibility to say, hey, if I already have an existing billing relationship with some cloud, I can sort of bring my own bill or bring my own cloud. Was that something that you originally did, or was that something that you had to evolve as you worked with different customers?
So that's something that we've evolved. So we all obviously we want to help our customers to be successful. So we keep an ear open for their wishes as well. But we have indeed we put a lot of emphasis on making it easy and kind of making it easy to try these things. There are no long-term commitments that you need to make, but rather you can spin them up and try them out and see if they work. And similarly, we put a lot of emphasis that you can adjust maybe size of your service if your usage grows, or vice versa. If the usage is not what is expected, then downgrade a service. And we wanted to make that just as easy as possible for our users.
Yeah, and I would assume sort of things like upgrades and new version of the upstream project comes out. How long does it typically take you to to be able to make that an offer to somebody? Do you give them the flexibility of choosing a version? How do they sort of manage the day two interactions?
So it's a managed service. So we definitely keep or take care of things like applying software security patches and other important bits. But or we let our customers then decide on the schedule when we do major version upgrades. That's probably the point where we give the power and the control to their users.
Right.
And we try to track the upstream project as quickly as possible. So we are often depending a little bit on the service types, but we follow Postgres and Kafka, for example, quite speedily because there's just so much happening in that space as well.
Right. I'm curious. The interaction with the cloud always has some sort of sort of mode of shared responsibility, right? It's Amazon's got a document and sort of says this is what we do, and different cloud providers. I'm curious how you guys think about that shared responsibility model, because not only do you offer a number of things as managed services, but then you also offer integration. So you offer logging integrations and authentication integrations, monitoring. Like, how do you tend to think about where the Aiven services stop or the integrations stop, and the customer sort of takes over responsibility? How does that work? How has that sort of evolved over time?
No. So it is indeed, we have a similar view on the shared responsibility model as the cloud providers, that we want to take care of the infrastructure up to a certain levels. We ensure data is always stored in a manner that it's resistant to failures, and it's encrypted, it's protected in transit. The boundary for us is typically on the application level. So if we talk about Apache Kafka, it would be then the customer can or set up their topics or a number of partitions as they best see fit. And then perhaps our responsibility is making sure that those partitions, for example, are replicated in a manner that spans multiple availability zones for redundancy and that sort of things.
Yeah. And then how do you think about data, sort of who's responsible for data? Do you include sort of backing up and sort of, backup and disaster recovery as part of the service that you offer? Is that the customer's responsibility, or is that sort of a shared model as well?
Yes. So our services also include backups and disaster recovery capability. But at the same token, I think we consider always the data or our users and customers, they own all the rights to the data. So right. Kind of a full life cycle. But definitely we can help in ensuring backups and making sure that its data remains available. Yeah,
and it's obviously we've seen the cloud sort of evolving in that direction. There's a pretty broad set of services that you guys offer today. Obviously, and I mentioned at sort of the top of the show, the company just took a very significant round of funding. I assume there's expansions both in terms of the business, but also what are some of the next services that you may have on your radar that people are asking for, or that you may see yourself look to expand into? Is it a broader set of services? Is it cross cloud capabilities? Where do you see it going?
Well, I think we kind of follow and track interesting open source technologies, because there's a lot of innovation happening in the open source space. So it's an interesting field. The maybe three technologies I can mention by name already is M3, the time series database coming out from Uber. Really exciting technology in terms of providing kind of time series database in a scale and in a distributed manner. Or just for the scale of data that we can capture and manage. Apache Flink is something that we are looking to bring out this year, and that would then bring more of a stream processing capability. So kind of complement the Kafka offering, where you have data flows and streams of data flowing through, but now you could include some processing along the way.
Yep.
And then also we're looking at the ClickHouse analytical database coming out from Yandex. That is promising in kind of for analytical workloads where you have a lot of data that you want to process and analyze.
Yeah. No, those are great. I mean, I can see sort of sort of the immediate use cases for those in terms of whether they are IoT types of use cases. It could be in government sector, energy sector, lots of different things. But obviously, you guys have built a strong foundation on data-centric services, analytic services. So yeah, it makes sense to allow people to do sort of collect data, take action on data, manage data in whatever way makes the most sense for them, whether it's streaming, time series, SQL, NoSQL. That's exciting to see that continue to expand. And, I can imagine, having to be able to keep up with that skill set is challenging. Is the team fundamentally based around Helsinki and Finland, or is the team spread out so that you can attract talent from all over the world?
So we have now a global team. So Helsinki is obviously our headquarters, but we have another development office in Berlin. We have operational offices with SRE capability in Sydney, Australia, and in Toronto, and we're kind of continuously expanding as well. I think that the skills are in such a high demand that everyone needs to go global.
Right. Well, and those areas, Sydney, Toronto, Helsinki, are really technology hotbeds for people that don't, always follow what's going on. I mean, there is a ton of really good talent in all of those places, Berlin as well. So, I'm sure that the team continues to grow, with really, really good talent. I'm curious, how much do you see customers asking you? Obviously, if I go to the site, typically I'm going to choose a cloud provider. Are you beginning to see customers ask you for ways to do things across multiple clouds, where, they need to run a service in one location versus another, one cloud provider versus another for regulatory reasons, or, they worry about it for competitive reasons? Have you reached that stage where people are asking for that, or is that still kind of a low-hanging, kind of a low priority type of thing?
We see some of it, and it's kind of interesting, kind of given how much talk there has been on multi-cloud support. But we are indeed seeing some cases of that coming, and either it comes indeed from kind of disaster recovery capabilities that you want to run a copy of your database in another cloud altogether, or replica, or then sometimes the regional coverage is not all the same. So you might have a Kafka cluster where you want to then export or stream data or replicate data to a different cloud provider that is in perhaps closer to a important customer segment. And then we're seeing some cases where there are larger enterprises through M&A processes. They have teams that are using just different clouds, and being able to use a single pane of control to manage all those services is beneficial.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was gonna ask you. You mentioned early on that a lot of your customers really are sort of self-service driven. Do you see what sort of patterns do you see in terms of, is it usually a small group within a customer gets started, they're successful, and then larger groups come, or do you see it sort of being sort of a lot of individual projects that come? How do you see that typically across organizations? Is it do they tend to once one group is successful, a lot of them come, or do they tend to sort of be individual projects?
It varies quite a lot from companies. I'd say that the typical is probably a team that is starting a new project that then onboards and then maybe tells the other teams in the enterprise that this is helpful. But we do have some great success from internal developer experience or IT departments that then serve their own teams, and there we've seen some great success when kind of having these open source services available has accelerated a lot of innovative projects in those organizations.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, you guys, the challenge with the cloud is more and more. I mean, there's just so many services that are being offered. You guys have a very rich set of services. In different companies, different industries, different companies are kind of trying to figure out the best way to take advantage of the cloud, whether they're, they consider themselves a technology vendor. It could be somebody in financial services that wants to offer, services within their industry. Do you have ways that different companies can partner with you such that, in some cases, Aiven is sort of the front door, but in other cases, you're, providing services that are behind somebody else sort of, enabling those services for a broader ecosystem? How do you think about partnering with different, different vendors, different companies, different parts of the ecosystem?
I think we'd be happy to partner with. So we have some great partnerships with cloud providers, some great partnership with technology providers. We want to definitely continue on that one. Similarly, that if there are system integrators that we can make people's life easier, then we'd love to do that. Yeah. I think it goes onto our core mission on bringing these great open source technologies to people and making the people successful in utilizing open source as kind of foundation on building applications.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'm like I said, I was excited to get a chance to talk to you because, we're seeing so much innovation happen in open source. We're seeing some interesting sort of business dynamics, with people changing licensing, and it creates some uncertainty for customers as to, where do they invest, where do they not invest. And so, the approach that you guys are taking, which is, the pure open source upstream from projects, the flexibility of multiple clouds. I think, the approach you're taking is really, really exciting. I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it. What are the best ways if folks want to engage with the Aiven team, beyond just sort of direct self-service? Are there easy ways for them to get in touch with your teams and sort of talk through their problems, maybe prior to engaging with things?
Yeah, definitely. I would then recommend just visiting our website at aiven.io and then getting started there. It's kind of, if I may pitch a bit, there's always, we offer also kind of some evaluation trial period where you can go yourself, log in and try the services without any commitments as well. See if the service is something that could be helpful to your workloads, and through that, then we're always there to help as well if we can do anything to make your next project.
That's great. Listen, I'm so thankful for your time. It's late your time, so I want to be respectful, and I appreciate not only educating us on this, but kind of bringing the focus that your team has around enabling open source. For me in my day job, I focus on open source. It's great to see it happening in the cloud providers as well. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up. Heikki, thank you so much again for your time. Again, founder and CTO at Aiven, Aiven.io. If you want to go check this out, it'll all be in the show notes for folks. But really excited to see, as we've mentioned in previous shows, people that are making the cloud simpler to consume, all the great services that are driving business applications and making those easier across multiple clouds. So again, thank you for your time, folks. As always, thank you for listening to the show. Thanks for telling a friend. I know we're continuing to see growth around the world, and so we always appreciate you helping us grow the community. So with that, for myself and for Aaron, we want to thank Heikki for his time today, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.